This is Jesus, James, and Mark. And I'm Mark.
And I'm James.
Welcome to episode 33 of this great podcast. We are excited to have you. And first off, let me say welcome. If it's your first time here, we're glad to have you. Hit like on however you're listening to this, wherever you're listening to. Subscribe. Find the notifications. We want you to share the experience for sure. And I'm going to give you all the ways that you can listen so that if you've just stumbled upon this today, maybe one of these other ways is a more preferred method for you. So you can get us on Apple Podcasts. You can get us on iHeart. You can get us on Spotify. You can get us on Amazon. You can get us on YouTube. And you can find us on Facebook. So all of those great ways. So
and give us some comments. We'd like to hear any kind of critiques or little notes. We love talking to people.
And our email, jesusjamesmark@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We are starting a new study today, which you thought we couldn't get through a book of the Bible, and we did. We got through the gospel.
Yeah.
And now we're going back to the beginning of everything, in the entire creation, Genesis.
The beginning of it all.
And this is where, and by the way, we typically start, like most podcasts, we do this thing called a cold open. and so I want to do that. But I do know we got to dive into this thing. So we don't have, because this is a big book, and you and I were having this conversation yesterday. This could take us, who knows? And who knows how long this could take us?
Yeah.
We don't want to put, and what we're not going to do is put a lid.
In a box. Yeah, we're not going to box it into like we have to get through this much today. We want to discuss whatever the word brings out.
Yes, and I think the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about the book of Genesis is, of course, it goes, well, that's the beginning. That's the very beginning. And I think, the beginning. Do you remember your first memory?
No.
Nothing?
I have some young memories, but whether or not it was my first one, I have no clue.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got like, and they're like, they're all, it's sort of like, you think like an old photograph or even, and it's funny, it's black and white television footage. It almost pops up like that in your head, doesn't it?
Which is what I watched when I was a kid. Black and white TV.
That's how old we are. But there are your parents.
Yep.
Who, again, especially as I said, it's chronological events. You can probably remember, like I remember like kindergarten. I remember memories of that. I even remember playing outside before going to school, like just little pieces.
I didn't go to kindergarten.
You didn't go to kindergarten?
No, it wasn't required until the year after I was supposed to go. Wow, so
that's how old you are.
Yeah.
You predated kindergarten.
Yeah, kindergarten was it was a early daycare system.
That was for these.
Yeah,
these newfangled kids.
Yeah, I saw kindergarten come into existence.
Wow. All right. Well, I was thinking too. I know a lot of people too have broken. Either, like in my situation, I don't have a lot of, from my mother's side, she wasn't a part of my growing up. So I don't have a lot of that,
right.
The stories of her family and how that came about. But I think most of us have to trust not only the history of our lives, but the history of everything to our parents, our grandparents, they would tell us, these stories.
You have to be able to trust the history.
And this is what essentially Moses, who wrote the book of Genesis.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's attributed to Moses.
Yes.
There is no actual.
Well, I say that because I think that's
everybody, even the apostles in the New Testament. Everybody says that this was a Moses. Moses wrote all of this. The Pentateuch.
Pentateuch?
Yeah, the Pentateuch. Yeah.
And but from what we all gather, we all like all that study and
us and y'all and
everybody is that these stories were as Moses wrote them down.
Yeah.
They were essentially the stories of the generations that were told. And again, I'm not trying to give a big giant overview of the book of Genesis, but it does start that, and there's the parts in that start just like you, and you can go to get your birth certificate, and you were talking. There's so many places you can go and get court records, and to mark things that happened historically or where you came
your DNA
from.
out there and get all kinds of stuff back about your lineage
and Genesis has this is essentially a lot of what this is, the research of dating back to the beginning of creation and the story of the history of mankind, of humanity.
The beginning of it all, how it all started.
And this is where people start to go in a different direction. And you and I were talking earlier about this, that in studying about this, what's interesting is how people, and when I say people, I mean Christians.
Yeah.
Christians who look at the book of Genesis, especially and specifically from the first verse all the way until a guy named Abraham appears, that a lot of that is just metaphors and poetry and
lore.
Right.
Just stories that were passed down almost to where it loses its validity sometimes. And
yes.
And a lot of people struggle trying to balance the creation story in the Bible to scientific beliefs, I guess.
Yes. I want to say this is where a lot of times people try to marry their spirituality with human
science.
And
I'm of the belief you don't have to do that.
I don't, because here's here's I want to say this because this is also where science and spirituality often come to fist fight.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be that way. It really doesn't. So I know that for some of the people that listen to our podcast, maybe you're going to start, as we start having this conversation, that Chop and I are going to say some things that automatically put you on the opposing side of where we are. So patience is where I ask, because if this were a group study and you were presenting your side or whatever, and this is where we're asking, if you have contrary or question or a statement or something, please share it with us, because we are going to give it to you how we see it, how we read it, and again, as we're discovering it now. And as we often say, we'll continue to read it, find out more about it down the road, etc. And I say that simply to go back to science and say, one of the things that really aggravates me about science is how the word science comes from a Greek word that means basically truth. Like this is facts. This is facts. Science. Except in the scientific world, we're constantly testing the science, right?
Yeah.
And disproving it all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, if you look at the history of scientific discovery, what we continue to discover is that, wow, we got that wrong.
Yeah. Sometimes the science isn't right.
Oh, we weren't right. But in the moment that we all live in, like right now, everybody that lives in this moment is so convinced that our science is so right.
Right.
That, well, this disproves all of your mumbo jumbo. Yet, trust me, if I can just time capsule you to some future date where science has allowed itself to continue to, and let's go ahead and use this word for the first time, and we're going to say this word a lot, evolve, is that you will find out that science is the only thing that evolves.
Yes.
Science evolves into, wow, we got that wrong because now we've discovered this is actually what happens. And I will tell you, and I ask you, if you are a scientist, I'm challenging you. There is never science is always evolving.
Yes.
Prove me wrong on that.
And I would also challenge anybody in the scientific world to give me any scientific evidence of creation without a single assumption. Science has no assumptions. Science is truth, like you said, right? Science should be the facts, right?
The word science is truth,
right? And
facts,
it should just be the facts. There's no scientific anything proof of creation without making some assumptions. You have to assume certain things because no one is alive that was there.
Let's just do this. For the sake of getting started the right way.
Yeah.
Let's just read the first line of the book.
Yeah.
And it's the book of Genesis. And if you listen to the last podcast, we decided
we're going to read to y'all
because people said we like it better when you read.
You have such a lovely reading voice.
That's my voice of people who are complaining. Why don't you start reading? That's not really how everybody sounds. But in all seriousness, we will start here. And I was actually reading Genesis 2, so I'm trying to get back to Genesis 1.
Let me make one more statement.
Okay.
That we have said in previous podcasts that we believe when we were reading Mark, we said that is a historical document.
Yes.
I want everybody to know that from my personal belief, I think starting right here, it is also a historical document.
Yeah,
this is the history given to Moses from God.
Yeah, in fact, I almost want to take my hat off and make a solemn swear to tell you, yes, I too stand with my friend Chop and say this is a historical document and that what we're about to read from the beginning of the book is a historical document of how Earth is created. And I understand this is, again, where science and spirituality come to fight. And this is often tough because you are Christian and inside of you is a human spirit that wants to argue science, modern science. And then the other side of you that goes, but wait a minute, that guy on the podcast just said, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, I went and looked. The guy on the podcast, well, I don't know. And I'm not saying that I know. What we're saying is we're going to open some ideas that we want you to explore if you're on the other side of this.
Yes.
I feel like many of you might be also like, we're right with you standing there. So anyways, because here's what I'm going to say. You're right. You brought up a great point.
Well, wow.
Science, especially when it comes to creation, there is no theory out there when it comes to how did this all start.
Scientific
that
theory
doesn't
is
have a
oxymoron.
missing piece. That doesn't have a missing piece. And the missing piece, I'm getting ready to read. Let me go ahead and dive into this. Let me because I'm gonna blow the scientific
You
world.
should never have the word theory behind scientific. Because a theory is just an idea.
It is.
And science is supposed to be facts.
That's
so
right.
They don't even go together.
Genesis 1, New King James Version, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I'm going to stop right there. And you're like, wait a minute, you just read one thing.
That could be the rest of the podcast.
This could be and it's funny that because you said that yesterday, and I pondered on that, and I thought, could it? And I did think, because I do know their verses carry these weight about them like this. Okay, so here we go. So when we talk about creation, there's a couple of things here. One is, okay, so let's bring up our good friends, the dinosaurs. Okay, because there's been fossil records that show that dinosaurs have roamed this earth.
Yeah, you
ever heard
cannot
this?
dispute.
Well, dinosaurs aren't in the Bible. Do you remember there was a sect of our population when we were younger, I'm telling you, that existed that said that dinosaurs didn't exist because they weren't in the Bible.
I remember people trying to prove that these big bones they were finding were just regular bones that had sediment built on top of them, and that they looked exactly like the same bone over millions of years or however much time they were given it.
So here's and the scientific world wants you to believe that the Earth is 100 some million years old, or even more, billions.
Yeah.
I don't even know. It's because again, the only way they can explain this thing here, and here's this other thing, evolution, which they think is this key component of life, that
The
somehow
evolutionary theory.
theory, which again, if you read the original text, and again, this is the problem as these books get republished and republished, they take out stuff and they don't put the fact that Charles Darwin said this is a theory.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into Mr. Darwin in a minute. But what I will get into is, so here's one thing from your Christian principle that I want you to embrace first and foremost. So if you're saying, okay, well, wait a minute, because Chop and I are first telling you that when we study this, we're talking about somewhere like, when we're writing around the man created, we're talking about 4,000-ish, 5,000-ish years ago, right? I mean, that's kind of the timeline you've got, right?
I'm around 6,000.
6,000?
6,000-year-old Earth, somewhere in there.
6,000-year-old Earth. I'm just saying, as far as us, when we're talking about creation of man, and because again, there's a lot of, and I'm not trying to get a number. I'm just saying, it's hard to tell, and this is where people get in this thing. I don't have an exact number to tell you. Is it 4,000, 5,000, 6,000? No, I don't have an answer.
Well, my belief is that
right.
man was created on the day 5.
On the day 5, yes.
Yeah. So, however old the Earth is, minus 5 days is how
minus
old man
5
is.
days. Right. As I said,
like I said, I'm a very literal, historical. When this says it was a day,
right,
I'm thinking a day.
You're thinking a 24-hour cycle,
and I'll explain why in a minute when we get to that part.
Because what I'm trying to really express is that when the science world tells you that it's 100-some million years old, and that somehow a single cell ooze came out of an ocean and evolved into all this life that you see. And again, I am really dumbing down, because when you go down, it comes down to this Big Bang theory that somehow, right from this explosion, the two things they can't explain, one is either the charge that caused the explosion or the matter that just existed that exploded. Because something had to explode in order for there to be an explosion.
Yeah.
That would be matter.
Right.
And to me, right, so who created the matter? Oh, I don't, and science would tell you, I don't know, it just existed there.
Yeah, and
there's their first assumption,
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, in the first book of the historic document of the earth, the where does the matter created? When God created the heavens and the earth. There's your matter. And then in the second verse, which I'm going to read in a minute, you're like, the Big Bang, that is when he pulled and stepped into the chaos and separated the night into the day. That explains to me, the Big Bang Theory is explained in the first two things.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, my whole thought on this is just that first one, the first verse explains just how great a God we worship, because he is outside of time and space. He is beyond what we all live in we live in a trinity, right? We live in the time, the space, and the matter. There is no time without space. There is no matter without time. You can't have one without the other. God was outside of all that. None of that matters to him. And then in a blink, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And in that moment, he created time, space, and matter. And in each one of those, you have another trinity. Time is past, present, future. Matter is gas, solid, liquid. You know, all of these things. And then he's the trinity sitting on top of all of it. It's a massive understanding of how we cannot understand the realm that God lives in.
Right. No, and it's amazing to see, or I guess astonished that people get caught up in how incredibly dynamic and complex the world is. and yet can't zoom out to see what you were just saying.
Yeah.
Of that's what's amazing about God, because the term is intelligent design.
Yeah.
And to me, for people who this is the funny. There's a section of really, 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 really smart people, okay, and then there's a subsection of really, really smart people, okay, and these really, really smart people hate intelligent design because they can't disprove it.
Right.
The really, really, really smart people are smart enough to tell you, yeah, intelligent design is so real.
You can't look at it.
We can't disprove it, and so we were not even going to argue with it. And I'm telling you, you want to go down that rabbit hole, go ahead and dive down it, because you're going to find out the smartest of smart people cannot. When you say intelligent design, they do this.
And
there has to be
don't
an
want to give the
intelligent design.
credit to God necessarily.
Right.
Sometimes they just want to say we know it's there, but and
Right.
there's a Latin term that I found when I was doing this research that I thought was super great, because it's ex nihilo, I think is how you pronounce it.
Right.
And it
Yes.
actually means out of nothing. So when other people write about the beginning or the creation, they use that term, out of nothing.
Yes.
And that is exactly what the scientists would like you to believe, is that everything
the
happened.
Greek, you said?
I think that's Latin, yeah.
Or the Latin?
Greek.
Okay. Because what's interesting is, too, because I saw this. So the Hebrew word for this created the heavens and the earth, that word in the created the heavens and the earth is I think it's pronounced bara. That's the Hebrew word. And it is created from nothing.
Yeah.
So
outside of time, space, and matter, God is saying, I'm going to create. And we wanted to make sure that we showed you how Christ is tied to this thing, because we need to read a little bit more, but there's another point that needs to be made about this beginning time.
Yes.
When you have God creating everything out of nothing.
Yeah, because I wanted to stop to point out that this is where, when the smart people try to explain, okay, well, how did it all start? They will tell you that some sort of thing happened, and from that, life spawned. They can't explain where these things go. And I know people are like, well, you guys are just saying because the book said I'm just supposed to take it. Well, I'm just telling you, this book has been around, and when we're reading this is basically the cornerstone of three of the major religions on this planet.
Yes.
This document is beyond just Christianity. This is Judaism. This is essentially where the Muslims also got how the story of creation came from this. So again, argue if you want. To me, when I hear it, it's like, okay, well, that explains it, because he created the heavens and the earth, and then we're going to read further into that.
Yeah.
And what I really wanted to bring up intelligent design is because the cyclical part of how, and I love that you brought up all the Trinity of everything.
Yeah.
But I love how the other thing is how everything has this going in to come out. I believe it was, and I never like to use any sort of Disney references at the same time. But it's from that Lion King, the Circle of Life.
Okay.
To explain it but it's better than all that, because it's intelligent design. I think when you feel it and the Holy Spirit comes in you and you sort of and you think about that idea, you realize that not only was it designed intelligently by the Creator, but that you were designed by Him to be intelligent enough to recognize that it was designed intelligently by Him.
There is a verse in one of the Gospels, I don't remember which one it is, where it says that you don't have an excuse, because when you look at creation, you cannot.
That's yes.
You're fooling yourself to look at creation and go like, that happened by chance. You see God's presence in creation. And that's how he designed it.
Yeah, if you look at life and say by chance,
Yeah.
to me, yeah, as I said. Now I wanted to say the other thing before we wrap up the dinosaurs here, because here's my other thing before we go into any more reading. So I believe everything in the Bible except, that stuff early on, I don't know, 7 days and da-da-da-da-da. Let me tell you an even crazier concept. And I got two crazy, and I don't know if I'm going to get to both of them today, but I hope I do. I'm at least tease one of them, but if I don't get to tell you today.
I'm
but
really excited when you go into your crazy mode.
Oh, I'm super.
And you got two crazy things today. This is going to get.
Yeah, I mean, I got some crazy ones. But I got to try to maintain it.
Okay.
I got to try to, maintain the calm there. But let's actually do this. Let's do the reading first.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that will, that will get us.
And I may
going.
stop you when you hit the point I want to make.
Listen, let's do that. Let's
Okay.
do that. So, let's go ahead and get the. So we're reading from Genesis 1. And I did read and I will read the beginning again, just because I wanted to bring up that one point.
Yep.
But in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and the darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light.
Let me stop you right there. Because this is the point I want to make about how beautiful this all ties together with the Trinity. Because we have God creating, the Spirit is hovering over, and then God said, "Let there be light." And in John 1, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word was made man and dwelt with us." So the Word is Christ. We all understand that John 1:1 is talking about Christ. And here is God said, so his Word. So here you have Christ, the Spirit, and God, the Trinity, right at the beginning of everything.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was so uniquely vivid understanding of what was happening right here at the beginning. I thought it was fantastic. There's the Trinity. There's your time, space, matter all coming. You have God created the heavens. There's your matter. In the beginning, there's time. He created the heavens, which is space, and the earth, which is in the middle of it.
Yeah, and again,
Fantastic.
I can't explain all of it, obviously, because I'm not part of that. I'm not God. But I gotta say, the thought of that and all of it being together, it's unbelievable. And I bring up this, so you just heard me say about the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that people have even thought about this. But let me read this back again. Okay, so this is going back to Genesis 1:3. Then God said, "Let there be light." And God saw the light, and that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. Okay, so there's our first day.
Yeah, day one.
We're okay now, and there's a lot that's happened here. Okay, so what has happened is that God has created this formless, or God, this heaven and earth,
Mm-hmm.
and then this formless void. He has reached in, and light has come through, and he saw that this light is good. And then he separated this light from night and day. So it's again, this is God reaching into the chaos of the beginning and the beginning stages of forming earth. And again, to try to put that into words, that's as best as you're going to get in human form. Now, secondly, this is the first thing, and I'm going to do, I said, I got some crazy ones for you, because people never think about this, because people go, wow, that's amazing. Light, night, day. Guess what? There is no sun and there is no moon.
Right. They're not created yet.
And guess what? We got a couple days before they even show up.
Yeah.
That is mind-blowing when you Because most people live their whole life and have read this book
Yeah.
and think, well, of course, the first day he comes up, sun,
There's the
moon,
sun, yeah.
night and day. No, that's not what happened. So this is, to me, this is a God verse scripture about if man had to write this in I can't imagine that there are enough trees on the planet to publish the book it would take to explain the scientific process. So, like, you know how they have those, like on, because I am not a smart man, but like on Good Will Hunting, you know, when he's writing on the board and there's those math equations that
Yes.
go on forever. You know, I was never.
How you like them algebras?
I was only general math guy. No, I did take some algebras, but in all seriousness, if man had, if you imagine if science had to write like the equation for creation, are there enough servers in Silicon Valley? Is there enough paper on the planet to write down this formula? I would say no.
No.
I would say, and so what you do is you have Genesis 1 through the first day.
Yeah.
To me, that is an unexplainable scientific formula that explains something that, quite honestly, you can't explain.
And I tell you, I went down that rabbit hole a little bit because I've always read that knowing that the sun was created a few days later. And what I found was that God was the light in the beginning. He was the light that was out there. And if you read 2 Corinthians 4:6, it says, "For it is God who commanded light to shine out of darkness, who has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ." And in the end, so God commanded light to shine out of the darkness. And then in Revelations 21:22,
21, 22?
20. Okay, yeah. The city had no need of a sun or the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God illuminated it. So in the end, when the earth is cleansed, God will be the light that we have. The sun will no longer be needed, according to Revelations. Wow. Yeah. So God was the light in the beginning, and he separated the light from the darkness. And I guess that could also be a analogy for separating good and evil, maybe. I don't know. I didn't dive into it that deep, but he is the light.
Yeah.
He's the way, the truth, and the life.
And again, to try to wrap my head around that.
Sorry for the little delay there.
Oh, no. Trust me. You know.
Yeah.
I know. To try to wrap my head around that is
Yeah, it's amazing.
I mean,
and it's like I said at the beginning, it's trying to understand how great a God.
I'm gonna be real with you. I wrote down here, I probably don't start grasping a lot of this, and not that I even really do, but until about day 4 or 5. Probably about day 5 is when my human knowledge starts to catch up with what's going on here. I want to read all the other stuff. We can get to this point, but I'm gonna be honest with you as we're reading this. So but I love that, and I know for you it's like, and you and I, it's the sun and moon appearing on day 4 but it's one of those things when you say that to somebody because the truth is, and I'm not shunning you again, this is just a lot of people go to church, they consider themselves Christians their entire life, and they've barely read the Bible at all. And then when you tell them the sun wasn't created on day 4, they literally go and go, you are crazy. And then they go and look, and they're like, wait a minute, you're right.
I heard somebody say the other day, watching a couple of little reels, and it was the guy. I guess it could be a little bit offensive, but he said, if you've been a Christian, if you've been a believer for 4 years, and you haven't read through the Bible one time, he said you're being disrespectful to God.
You are, yeah.
And I mean, that might be taking it a little too far. If you read in your Bible every day and you haven't read it cover to cover, I mean, how you get your needs is how you get your needs.
Sure.
But you should be reading some of the Bible. You should be in the Word.
And I agree. I think that philosophy
that was a
is probably a little
harsh.
judgy, a little harsh. But you're right. I mean, it's one of those things, though. Jesus made things so easy for us, and this is where, as I said, we've said multiple times, it's where people get stuck in the cycle of sin and then just rewashing and again, that's fine if that's how you want to live your life. It just seems, again, it's so empty to go from distraught to save me, distraught to save me, distraught to save me. But also the other part that Jesus said, listen, I don't care about you knowing the scriptures. I care about what's in your heart. And that's absolutely true. That's the most important thing. But people get lazy about that too. Then they say, well, Jesus said I don't need to know no scriptures, so I don't know any of them. Jesus wept. Like,
everybody knows that one.
Right. So,
and the way I look at it is that this is the revelation of our God to his people.
yes.
You will get a better relationship with your God by knowing his thoughts. And I would dare say that this is probably dumbed down so we can understand it to the level we do, because we cannot think on that level.
I think that's the reason why, because I'm going to call out everybody right now. Everybody listen.
Oh, man. Even
everybody, you, me, everybody. We all act like we want to know everything until we get told everything. And then we realize it was way over our heads and we didn't understand over half of what was told to us. Then we're offended by a large portion of it to start off with. So
and then
I'm with you. This thing is written in a way that
what don't fit good with us, we'll just kind of push it to the side. Right. Like, I didn't want to know that anyway.
Right. But what I'll say is, I think a lot of times humans get offended that creation is explained in these simple few passages in the beginning, and well, that insults my intelligence as a human. I need more. I need to know more.
It's not scientific, Mark.
Right? It's like you can't understand it. You can't understand it. So it's just there for you to pick where you can and be okay with it. But again, as humans, we just it's a story repeated time and time again. We rebel and get lost in our craziness, and then God has to pull us out of it, and then we're so grateful until we forget about everything, and then get caught back up in the thing, and He's got to pull us out again, and it's anyways.
The reality of that is that there's only one more pulling out.
Yeah.
This will be the last time God saves us.
Well, there's two. I said this last time, and one of the reasons why I believe this wholeheartedly, not only because I think it's the truth, but I had to come up with, at some point, it's not only just that filling the void of I'm trying to fill this. Why can't I be happy? Trying to find this certain something that seems to be missing in humanity, but it's okay. What's the plan after this? Am I just fading into dust? Am I just turning into fertilizer? Am I just paying the $15,000 exit fee to sit in a box and decay? Or is there something more to this? And so that's the question that most people have to ask themselves. Do you believe in something more?
It does go back to the validity of what Christ said, right? If Christ was who he said he was, you have to give him some validity. And if he was actually speaking the truth, then you have to believe there's something beyond this. And if we are the eternal creatures that we're supposed to be, you will spend eternity somewhere.
I don't know if you said this in our on the podcast already, or if you just said it earlier in the morning, because we've been together for a while this morning. But I do think that, yes, we're going to treat this like a historical document.
Yes.
Going forward. And if you're one of those people who goes, well, the New Testament, Jesus, New Covenant, I don't need the Old Testament. That's just, here's what I want to say. Jesus referenced that Old Testament so many times. Why would you not? Why would you not? If he referenced it as the truth, then I'm telling you, It's the truth. Now, he may have fulfilled prophecies.
Yep.
He may have fulfilled covenants and changed things, yes. But why would you not want to go and just try to discover
And I
these
want to say I
things?
read something in getting ready to start this chapter or this verse that said that Genesis is the most referenced book in the New Testament. There's
Yes.
more references from Genesis than any other book in the Old Testament.
And I think Jesus, by the way, referenced Deuteronomy as far as the red parts of your. If you have one of those Bibles where
The red letter
everything
Bible?
that Jesus says is in red, then he specifically referenced Deuteronomy. But you are right, Genesis.
In the whole
When you
New
use
Testament,
all
yeah.
of the when people yes, you're right. Let's do this though, because we only got a few more minutes left in today's episode, and we do want to
We
get
got through day one.
Yeah, we've only got through. You're right. We thought, well, we wondered if we'd get through the first verse.
Yeah.
All right, so we got through the first day. Let's go to 1:6. Then God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters, and which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. Then God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth." And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the third day. And then God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of heavens to give light on earth." And it was so. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of heavens, and to give the light on earth, and to rule over the day, over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Now I'm going to stop, because I feel like this is probably pretty much where we're going to end the podcast here. And if we open up more.
Because this whole firmament thing.
Well, firmament, which means heavens, sky. It actually means, did you get this word? Expanse.
Yes. Mhm.
That's the word that I
Yeah.
got. The Hebrew word is expanse, which means almost infinite, right?
Right.
Like there's so a lot of people believe when we say firmament, they think of this dome across the earth, right? This sort of the atmosphere of the
Right.
earth. No, that's putting a lid on the firmament, which is clearly not that. Clearly the word means expanse, which means space.
Yeah, and there is some thoughts
Right.
about the firmament being the space between Earth and space, which would be because it clearly says, that there's the firmament was put in place to separate the waters underneath from the waters above. And I wasn't there, so I don't know how everything started. I do know that there's no rain until Noah's flood. So however the earth was moistened during this time, right? There was no
there was no rain. And we're going to get to that later.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
The mist, basically.
Yeah, so the firmament would kind of contract at night so that you got your dew and everything got moistened, and then it would expand. Again, I don't know how it all worked. I know that at some point everything had to change a little bit.
I know it seems crazy. My brain went to, and we haven't even read this, so please bear with us.
Yeah,
That
because
all I can think of, and I just wanted to interject because we were going to run out of time, is if you could imagine James and I, Chop and I, in the 90s in some night establishment in Raleigh where an angel would have appeared to us at 3 o'clock in the morning to tell us, I need you guys to stop this mess because at some point in the future, I want you guys to have a discussion about the firmament and the expanse and mist. Because
I am going to dive into that deeper to have a better. I want to have more information on that on our next podcast because it's one of those things where people go like, well, that's just crazy. You know what I'm saying?
Again, it goes down to more of this stuff that's hard to wrap your brain around, and especially creation at this time. I brought up the dinosaurs, and this is something I want to hit on before we go, because we're not going to hit on all these things. And I said there was 2 things I wanted to go crazy on, and we're not going to be able to till probably next time. But if I start teasing them,
I can look forward to crazy on the next podcast.
So if you are a Christian that believes that all of this man and so scientists think that dinosaurs existed hundreds of millions of years and way ahead of man's creation.
Yeah, dinosaurs were extinct long time before man came into play.
So if you believe that and you're a Christian, here's how I'm going to question. This is why I want you to look inward on yourself. So this is where you're calling God a liar, and that's not good, because when was sin created? In the Bible. So if you're a Christian and you believe when sin was created, when was it?
That's a loaded question.
I know, but let's just go surface value. I'm just saying that we're not
when they ate
as
the
it
fruit.
appears in the book.
Yeah.
When they right. So,
well, that's when sin was revealed. I'll say that
was revealed. Okay. Well, the wage of sin is
death.
So dinosaurs died. So you're saying, so again, this is my thing. Again, this is where, and again, I know there's a debate about where did sin created, but you're saying sin existed on the earth with godly creatures who were dying because the dinosaurs died before man. Why would they have died? Why would the dinosaurs have died? Because death didn't exist until sin became prevalent, and the wage of sin is death.
I'm part of your choir.
I know. I'm not yelling at you, but this is my Christian people who are like, I want you to think about that. How can you fathom that death occurred?
So death was not a thing until sin was committed.
Again, we're trying to grasp ideas that are way beyond I'm just planning ideas.
Yeah, and
that's all I'm doing.
I've never even considered the animals being part of that, but I mean, it makes perfect sense that if death wasn't a thing, why would animals be dying before?
Well, and you and I love things like bacon and steak and everything. Here's the only biblical principle of veganism that exists is that before sin, our only food was plants.
Yes.
Based on this system.
And the animals only ate plants.
And the animals only ate plants. That's getting ready to be said. So that being said, my other wild, crazy thing is this. And so, because I know we got to wrap this up. I'm looking at the time. We're about to run out of time. When we think about the week, when we think about our lives, here's something now this just hit me this week. Okay, so a lot of the stuff we've talked about, I swear, I think these are like some arguments I've been rumbling around with for a long time and just sort of fine-tune some studying this week. But this hit me this week. Humans were created. We haven't even gotten to this yet.
We're on day 4.
We're on day 4. Humans are created on day 6.
Yep. I said 5 earlier. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. See, if you don't hit us with an email or a comment.
Yeah, slam me for that.
I want to bring this up because here's what on the 7th day God rested. And my problem with this is our definition of rested has been has been morphed into, was God tired from all the work he did? I don't think God needed to rest in the sense of how we define rest. Now, rest is to be still, but what that word actually means is to settle, to set and to say, and to be at peace.
Yeah.
To settle and to be at peace. That term rest, when we think rest, we are thinking, I got to lay down and get some rest.
I need to shut these
And that
eyes.
is not, this was about reverence and being at peace at what was created.
He put the creation at rest. He said, I have made paradise, and I'm okay. I'm okay with what I've done here.
I mean, I know this is not biblical and just be mad at me. It feels like it's like, man, let's mic drop. Like an ease mic drop. Like, man, this is awesome. This is the part that blows my mind, because in our human mind, I think, again, we try to be God, don't we?
That is the original sin.
And in our mindset, this is how we think. We think, oh, got to get up and go to work. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And this is if you take this, I'm going to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And then on that last day of the week, I'll rest from all the work I did. You idiots.
That was harsh.
Me too. It hit me this week. Our first day of creation was resting. Our first he created us, and then on that seventh day, our first full day after being created was rest. Settle and be at peace at what I've created for you. But when we do it in our way, we want to do all the work and then rest. And settle and be at peace and then go into work. I mean, if you think about it in that regard, I mean, isn't it how we do everything so backwards? Because again, we're not God. Guess what? You're not creating the world. It feels like it.
So in that analogy, you would say you're not looking forward to getting to the end of the week to rest. You rested so well, you're looking forward to the week ahead.
Yes, and you're so at peace.
Oh, yeah, you're at peace, yeah.
And you're like, hey, because I know where I am, I know whose I am, I know who did this, and I know what my purpose is. As opposed to, oh my gosh, let me deviles from all that. We have it wired so wrong. And that's why we don't have the energy on Mondays or whatever day that you're like, well, I'm ready. Oh, I didn't.
When's the Sabbath getting here?
When's it? Is it Sabbath day yet? All right, we probably got to get out of here. We're already in the. Listen, this is going to be like this. We got through. What did we get to?
Day 4, bub.
Day 4. And I'm sure we left off some stuff. But if you have any comments or questions or
critiques,
concerns, we definitely want to hear from you.
And if anybody, I would
please.
This is one of those subjects where
we want
any kind of feedback would be good. If you have a thought or some instruction or some logic that you could put our way, please send it.
Absolutely.
This is part of this is one of my favorite books to read, and any understanding I can get out of it, I enjoy all of that.
I love it too. As I said, and we're just getting our feet wet in this thing. I'm with you. I get wait. You think I'm excited now? You wait till we actually get to the Abrahams and the patriarchs and all that stuff. I mean, but I'm enjoying this too. But we do gotta get out of here because this will turn into a 2-hour podcast. Right. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for being with us this morning and wherever you listen. We say this morning is this when we're recording, but thank you so much for your blessings, and we ask for your mercy and grace, and we thank you in all things. In Jesus we pray, amen.
Amen.
All right, we are thanking you. Episode 34 is coming up, and please like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time on Jesus. James and Mark.
Goodbye.